Okay, all right. This is my second time attempting to film this video, um, trying to explain why before 2020 I was very easy to get along with, Mr. Happy, and after 2020 it's very clear that I'm now Mr. Grumpy, um, and kind of let's dive into what a terrible year this was, and how going forward things should be different, and I'm going to approach issues differently. So first things first, short story about a subject of debate. And by the way, I'm a video game character right now, so that's how things are. As I'm blue. Um, so, one thing that's up for debate is usually money, and people have various opinions about money. There's a number of things you can believe about money that will impact your life greatly. If you believe a lot of silly things about money, you're going to have, not an impossible life, but a difficult life. People are motivated to tell you things about money, and money is an issue that people have a problem talking about, and I don't think that makes sense. I think people should be more forward about what they believe about money, and be willing to talk about it, right? So let's go into like how would that look like if you're having a discussion with someone about money. You want to inform them, right? If you know something, right, you want to teach them, right? And you have to be a nice person, and you need to approach them where they are, and maybe sit down over coffee, work it out, dialogue, and discuss what they believe about money, and then kind of put them on the right track for their own sake, right? Now, this is not what typically happens. People have, people would rather talk about sex than their bank account. So this is not a discussion that's really happening. But if it were, this is just some stock photography in PowerPoint that I found. Sit down with people, look at what they want to accomplish in life, and then have frank discussion about money and their income and all these other things, right? People would rather die than have these discussions. So it's kind of strange. If this is just like an illuminating subject about, what is going on, right? And but let's say you believe something about money, right? How would you go about believing something about in money or investing, right? You'd gather a bunch of information, like how much you earned, or how much you earned last year, how much you got in the bank account, and then you distill that into facts, right? And then you'd have a number of sources of information to tell you, like in certain advisors, certain advice that you got from someone. You would hopefully be able to determine which people are telling you correct things, and then based on all these kind of data points, you would form an opinion, right? Maybe opinion is buying a new car is a bad investment, right? That's kind of thing that you could gather information about, and then determine the facts about the situation, about the depreciation of a vehicle, and then you could refer to legitimate sources about what they believe is a wise investment about car choices, and then you'd form an opinion, right? And then you'd evangelize that opinion, and you'd say, don't drive a new car off the lot. It's probably a bad idea for most people. In money wise, right? But this is kind of something that people have a hard time talking about because people are squeamish for no good reason. And this is maybe not this. Maybe people are cool about talking about cars, but money generally, like people do not want to talk about how much money they lost on a penny stock tip, or how much of the life savings they put into gold in their mattress or something like that, right? So what's going on with 2020, right? I think this money discussion, right? Talking about money with people is kind of like you hit on these subjects where having a debate, right? These kind of tropes or recurring themes where more speech is the answer to bad speech or bad advice, more advice or more information. And then you also hit on this, you need a balance, right? So maybe a balance in investments, for example, if we're going to hit this money analogy. And then you want to appeal to someone's common sense and you want to approach them in a civil manner, right? If you run up to somebody and tell them they're really freaking stupid and moronic for dropping 50 grand on a new car, and they're putting their family in a precarious financial situation, then people don't really listen to you. They shut you down, and that's not really the best way to approach the situation, right? So you should be nice, right? Civility in this case is important. And you know what? You want to discuss, and lather, rinse, repeat. You want to have more discussions with people, more dialogue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the problem here is this year there's been too many damn issues, right? And I want to show this issue bingo card, right? So if we assume that the money discussion is hard, then talk about any of these things with your friends, right? Or family members or relatives or acquaintances or colleagues or whatever, right? So, you have 9/11, rapture, vaccines, chemtrails, election fraud, QAnon, 5G, war on Christmas, COVID, climate change, online voting, this bell curve, right? Kind of like racist conspiracy theories of demographic replacement, New World Order. People think the moon landing is faked. People think that, there's symmetry in politics, like both sides are wrong. People think that Sandy Hook was crisis actors or people think Sandy Hook was crisis actors, and there's people think the DC riot was a false flag, right? So people thinking all kinds of weird things, and about Obama's eligibility to run, Pizzagate, and people think JFK is still alive, or Osama bin Laden's assassination was faked, or all kinds of things, right? So, if you grant that, let's say 1 in 5, 1 in 10 Americans believe one or two, three things on this bingo card, like provably false things, right? They think, online voting will just work out. They can be, or some sort of app. Now, if you distill this into what does the average Trump supporter need to kind of be okay with, right? So, Trump is kind of like the Q conspiracy theory is a very Trump-centered conspiracy theory. He's spread vaccine conspiracy theory in the past. He's definitely on the COVID conspiracy theory bandwagon. And then he's on the election fraud conspiracy theory bandwagon. He's on the climate change conspiracy theory bandwagon. And he's hit on all these themes about demographic replacement, conspiracy theory, and also the Obama-Harris eligibility conspiracy theory. And, he relies on, all these other things about, false flags for the DC riots and all of these things. And so it's not just one issue, as if you're just talking to someone that's a Trump supporter and then they believe that buying a new car is a good investment or something like that. They believe or have no problem with any number of these things, right? And it kind of goes into they did not follow that opinion kind of distillation tactic accurately, right? So let's go into the brain death spiral that people are in right now. Number one, they start with the reactionary opinion, and then they engage with reactionary sources. They weaponize baseless claims and misinformation, and then they build a victim narrative out of the negative feedback. I'm being canceled, right? So, for example, right? Let's say liberals are you make up a reactionary opinion based on facts that are not accurate, right? Like you say, liberals are trying to cancel Christmas, and then your reactionary opinion is, oh, we need to get, Merry Christmas everywhere or something like that. And then you listen to news that is leading you in this war or culture war and telling you all these counterfactual things about, or let's say lies about what the so-called liberal agenda is, and then you build the victim narrative after someone tells you that you're an idiot, right? So if someone calls you an idiot after you hyperventilate about what the liberals are planning to do, then you say, the liberals are trying to cancel me, and it's all about building this persecution complex. And it's really about this politics of they, right? So if you talk to a conservative or particularly religious conservative or libertarian, right? They're talking about, the themes are similar. They must not win. They have an agenda. They cannot win. If they have one, they can only gain ground through dishonesty and theft. Everyone with common sense can see what they are doing. They choose to not deny to enrage you, right? They are making fun of you. They are actively trying to trick you, right? So this is kind of like repeating themes. As soon as you see it once, you see it all. You start, like, you can find it all over the place. The conservatives honestly feel that, the other side or whatever, which they cannot really define with any accuracy, right? But they just know it when they see it, right? They know this awful liberal agenda when they see it. They know, when liberals are trying to cancel Christmas or whatnot, they see through that, right? And they identify it, and then they get worked up about it, and then they engage with their sources that tell them what they want to hear and explain away their rage, right? And it's the same thing with libertarians, like religious conservatives and these accelerationists or libertarians. They ignore the damage done by the conspiracy theories, right? The bingo card that we've gone over, right? As the conspiracy theorists are injuring their opponents, right? They have the same right? They counter. They're going against this liberal agenda, and if the QAnon people are against the liberals or whatever, then they're fine with it. They're happy to not engage with it and not push back, because they rely on they rely on them to injure their political opponents, and they will continually engage with intentionally deceitful, goal-oriented news sources, right? They don't need content to be factual. It just needs to hurt their political opponents, right? So, and they will just ask questions like, what about, signature verification in one county or another, right? What about, what's on her, what about her emails? What about his laptop, right? What about this laptop? What about that server, right? It's not about necessarily fact finding. It's about, weaponizing information, or what feels like should be relevant information to achieve political goals, right? So this goes back to the slide, right? So if someone believes the moon landing is faked, that's a complete bullshit opinion. But in conservative circles, as long as you're on board with the anti-liberal project, you'll find some people will not engage with you on that subject or not set you straight. They'll just let you persist in delusion because it helps them politically. And on top of this moderates in discussion today, we'll be trying to sell unity, right? People talk about unity, and in this they'll look past their own reactionary opinions, typically to do with following the law, and they'll look past the cynicism, injury, and delusion of their friends to the right, and what they're trying to do is teleport back to a fake steady state or imagined steady state of political civility that exists some point in the past. Like maybe they thought that the political spectrum made more sense in the late 90s or the early 90s or the early 2000s, right? They think that they want the Republicans, the Democrats, and conservatives and liberals and what across all these countries, things used to make sense and now they don't. And they think that they will ignore, again, the bingo card, right? They'll ignore all of this. And they'll think, oh, we can just go back to arguing about, sales tax rates or something like that, or a train line. Yeah, and, people will say, oh, but what about the other side? What about all these angry people on the left, angry liberals? Aren't they angry at they as well? They hate billionaires. They're just being hypocritical. They're just as angry, right? But you forget the context, right? Not everyone is appealing to your religion or sense of common sense, right? No, like if you see through the propagandizing, you can see, people think that Trump is a divinely inspired individual, right? They place all his actions in biblical prophecy and other insane things, and then they appeal to your common sense, right? They say, dig deep and just think about it, and then you'll know it's true. That's not how information gathering works. It's like you don't know the truth. You don't inherently know what's true. You have to put some time in it and make an effort, right? And you also want to remember the bingo card, right? Contextually, it's not that one side hates billionaires while the other side thinks QAnon is literally real and Trump is sent by God to rule over America, right? There's no symmetry here, and it's completely insane to believe that there is. So the takeaways: don't let people center their comfort. You need to respect your own time, right? You can't engage with the bingo card, just like you can't explain in an afternoon all the how people should handle all their money or handle their financial life, right? And don't let anyone make excuses for conspiracy, right? So if someone will skip over QAnon and then or 5G or the COVID hoax conspiracy theories, but just to wind you up about what the other side is doing or pretending that things are symmetrical, don't let people do that. Don't waste your time explaining reality to truthers, right? So if someone checks off a box on that bingo card, it's not your responsibility to set them straight. And don't allow people to cynically downplay efforts to injure you, right? So the QAnon conspiracy theory wants to jail you, right? They think that they think that all kinds of liberal figures are guilty of crimes, and this is just injurious to yourself, right? So this is completely not acceptable, and people should not enable this dangerous bullshit, and we should not pretend this is temporary delusion, right? This bingo card wasn't created in a year, right? These issues, right? This bingo card is not created in a year and won't go away in a year, and it's not going to be a 2-week thing where we just have a difficult conversation and then things are gone, right? So enough is enough. It's time for Mr. Grumpy. So that's it. Enough of this bullshit.